I remember someone many years ago said to me, they evoked the symbol of the yin and the yang, the two tiers folded against each other within a circle. And this person, who was no rishi, roshi, geishe, or guru, but simply observant, said, it's not the black side, it's not the white side, it's the interface, it's the edge. And I found, by observing sleep, and some of you may recall the motto in Athanasius Kircher's.
Example of how organisms can have a substantial impact on their surroundings. Beavers build channels, waterways, into new areas. They make waterways much deeper, and this causes water to remain during hot seasons with a lot of evaporation, where all these liquids would be evaporating away on the planet's surface. And this is a bit of press material because sometimes there are some places where they'd have huge droughts, and this would drastically affect farmers, and the only places where they would have water remaining are in ponds where there were beavers. So we can already see how this is affecting a supposedly a much more advanced life form like ourselves. They are they are terraformers, even at this level of the animal kingdom. And they do increase the reach of waterways. So they, within just a few decades, thanks to a family or two of beavers, you can suddenly have a patch of earth that was arid and desert-like, and then these beavers will take tiny streams where there is barely a trickle in most seasons, and when there is water there, they can come in and dig it deeper and widen it, and especially just deepen it so that the water is retained better, and they can suddenly ecologists can come into an area that was just desert and could not sustain life, and then the traveling beavers coming in to do their thing, it has all of this grass, it's just lush, can support all of these forms of life that somehow find their way there, and it's a little oasis. And it's good to keep in mind for humans, when we learn to more intelligently use these relationships, as we're all these creatures born of this particular world and all of its electrical terrain, all of its electrical atmosphere, that we creatures can call on the skills of each other, such as for terraforming and making someplace lush, and maybe we can grow food for populations that otherwise would be starving and you'd have to ship food in. And so just something to consider. And before we consider the largest scale at which organisms of trillions of cells can reshape their surroundings, consider these effects in a more complex case.
One of the most exciting scientific findings of the past half-century has been the discovery of widespread trophic cascades. A trophic cascade is an ecological process which starts at the top of the food chain and tumbles all the way down to the bottom. And the classic example is what happened in the Yellowstone National Park in the United States when wolves were reintroduced in 1995. Now, we all know that wolves kill various species of animals, but perhaps we're slightly less aware that they give life to many others. Before the wolves turned up, they'd been absent for 70 years, that the numbers of deer, because there was nothing to hunt them, had built up and built up in the Yellowstone Park, and despite efforts by humans to control them, they'd managed to reduce much of the vegetation there to almost nothing. They'd just grazed it away. But as soon as the wolves arrived, even though they were few in number, they started to have the most remarkable effects. First, of course, they killed some of the deer, but that wasn't the major thing. Much more significantly, they radically changed the behavior of the deer. The deer started avoiding certain parts of the park, the places where they could be trapped most easily, particularly the valleys and the gorges. And immediately those places started to regenerate. In some areas, the height of the trees quintupled in just 6 years. Bare valley sides quickly became forests of aspen and willow and cottonwood. And as soon as that happened, the birds started moving in. The number of songbirds, of migratory birds, started to increase greatly. The number of beavers started to increase because beavers like to eat the trees. And beavers, like wolves, are ecosystem engineers. They create niches for other species. And the dams they built in the rivers provided habitats for otters and muskrats and ducks and fish and reptiles and amphibians. The wolves killed coyotes, and as a result of that, the number of rabbits and mice began to rise, which meant more hawks, more weasels, more foxes, more badgers. Ravens and bald eagles came down to feed on the carrion that the wolves had left. Bears fed on it too, and their population began to rise as well, partly also because there were more berries growing on the regenerating shrubs. And the bears reinforced the impact of the wolves by killing some of the calves of the deer. Here's where it gets really interesting. The wolves changed the behavior of the rivers. They began to meander less. There was less erosion. The channels narrowed, more pools formed, more riffle sections, all of which were great for wildlife habitats. The rivers changed in response to the wolves. And the reason was that the regenerating forests stabilized the banks so that they collapsed less often, so that the rivers became more fixed in their course. Similarly, by driving the deer out of some places and the vegetation recovering on the valley sides, there was less soil erosion because the vegetation stabilized that as well. So the wolves, small in number, transformed not just the ecosystem of the Yellowstone National Park, this huge area of land, but also its physical geography.
So here we had rivers, the very geography of a world, affected in a way they otherwise wouldn't be by the electric organisms that evolved on it, and all of the trees on mountains, trees large and small, working to stabilize and alter how the liquids could flow upon this planet's surface, and quite a exponential effect on life, where now you have other life forms evolve that can eat the trees in potentially disastrous ways, but then these other life forms can scare them off, alter their behavior so that the trees are maintained in their populations that continue to help craft the planet's surface. And I think this is a very interesting interaction effect. And humans are very much a part of all of this. Our species can be a self-regulating one, and highly directed too. Now we have a long history of coming into a state of maturity towards our surroundings. Kind of like the deer, we can have that urge to vacuum up all of the foliage, and for completely understandable, sometimes people can be greedy, but then otherwise there's all sorts of other reasons that people are socialized or are out of desperation of resources, driven to do these sort of things. So as we grow as a species, we can help each other by taking the best practices and best knowledge and the benefits or privileges from one place or another, and try to try to disseminate them more evenly. And humans can remove or add to the terrain. We are great terraformers. We can also contaminate the terrain. And our collective species can act like beavers, but on a planetary scale. So here we are, a creature born of this planet that can now reshape or change the conditions of this planet in remarkable ways. If you want to influence the state of the Earth biosphere, either depressing or inspiring the human species offers a direct route. So once humans have become more intelligently compassionate towards our own species and towards our surroundings, towards our home planet, we can evolve our technology and our intellect for interplanetary creative adventures one day. This seems like the trajectory of our people. One day, I'm sure we will introduce ecosystems on once barren planets, and for all the right reasons too, say not just in pursuit of one particular atomic compound that a few people can sell to make a lot of money and still not find true happiness, how it has. Now, I personally, though, am quite content to keep exploring this planet. According to the research of Robert Hazen, we have probably around, and very good research I might add, probably have around 1,500 minerals that are as yet undiscovered. And around 20% of the world's vascular plants are still undocumented and not really known and understood to science, to say nothing of what little surprises can
Welcome,
always
everyone.
come up.
My name is Laurence Wasson, and today I'm going to be giving a presentation entitled Understanding Care. I developed this presentation based off the fact that most of humanity has no clue what it means to truly care. Thank you for being here, and let's jump right in. It's time to start caring, right now. It's been time to start caring. What is care? So we're first going to define what care is. We're going to go into the dictionary definitions of care, the modern day dictionary definitions of care, and then what true care is. So modern definitions of care. Noun, the provision of what is necessary for the health, welfare, maintenance, and protection of someone or something. Serious attention or consideration applied to doing something correctly or to avoid damage or risk. Verb, feel concern or interest, attach importance to something, like or be willing to do or have something. These definitions were most applicable to what true care actually implies. These were last on the list in the noun section of the definition of care in the modern day dictionary. The first was like mental suffering, grieving, and that's not what true care is. That's not the version of care that I'm speaking about in this presentation. The word care derives from Old English, karu, kiru, sorrow, anxiety, grief. Also, burdens of the mind, serious mental attention. Now here's the definition of true care. To understand, live in alignment with, and serve the truth. That's true care right there. Living in accordance to the laws of nature. These go hand in hand. They are interchangeable. You can't have one without the other. If you're living in accordance with natural law, you understand, live in alignment with, and serve truth. That's just the way it works. To understand what a right is and what a wrong is. To be conscious of one's own and others' existence, and to love oneself and others. That's to truly care. If you don't know what truth is, if you're not in alignment with truth, if you don't live in truth and serve truth, you most likely do not express true care at all. I would say 99.99999% of humanity does not express true care because they don't know who they are. They don't know truth, so they don't know love. Because love and truth are one. You can't have truth without love, or care. You can't have care without love. True care is true love. It's seeing yourself in another. It's being able to understand that you're not separate from anything. This inherent truth is the basis and the backbone to what true care is. To understand you're not separate. To understand that you are one with everything and everyone. And to understand natural law. To understand that everything that you do has an effect on your environment. Not only yourself, but your environment. We're going to get into more of this throughout this presentation. Kahlil Gibran said, "You give but little when you give of your possessions. It is when you give of yourself that you truly give." and how right that is.
Things that would change how you see this world. Enough to drive men to madness. Your intuition is no use here. Faith alone can't save you when the universe begins. Is the Earth just one of uncountable copies tumbling through an unending void? On one you are rich, on another you have yet to be born. These are the deepest mysteries of the universe. Ladies and gentlemen, pray silence as I present to you